Hello, I'm Infamous Sphere. What's that? It's time for Infamous Queer!
Pride, 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 darling, darling, pride, pride 95!
It's been a long time. We've seen Dirk Bogarde play all manner of queer characters. The sissy villain, the righteous conflicted morally upright proper citizen, and the creepy and predatory abusive not quite boyfriend sort of but not really. And now we come to the end. There was only one character left to play. Someone old and sad. Dirk Bogarde's turn in The Servant established his reputation for playing unsettling, weird characters with a hint of perversion about them, and attracted the attention of several European directors, one of whom was Luchino Visconti, a man best known for doing several incredibly long films about vaguely historical queers or something. What? I had to look through all of Dirk Bogarde's filmography. I didn't have time to do Visconti's as well. Visconti liked Bogarde and cast him in The Damned, a film about a family of Nazi collaborating industrialists. However, we won't be talking about The Damned today, because, believe it or not, while there is a queer character in the film, it isn't Dirk Bogarde. No. Today we're going to be talking about a film about a man dying in Venice. This is Death in Venice.
I'm afraid to die. I think about it all the time. It won't go away. It haunts me. I can't get it off my mind. What can I do? It's just there.
Ah yes, Death in Venice. Based on a novella by Thomas Mann, an author from a noble family who commonly explored themes of class, sexuality, wealth, decline and death. This 1971 film is about exactly that. Disgraced composer Gustav von Aschenbach, a meek, irritable man dissatisfied by his lot in life, is fleeing the critics, his wife, and some guy who might be his boyfriend, and heading off to Venice to stay in an Edwardian pile of a hotel and hopefully get some of his creative spark back. However, while there, he catches a glimpse of a teenage guest of the hotel, Tadjor, and immediately becomes besotted with him. He then spends more or less the rest of his holiday watching Tadjor from afar, all the while growing ever more suspicious that Venice is becoming afflicted with contagious disease, an outbreak the hoteliers are trying to hide. Unfortunately for Aschenbach, his hunch is correct, and he ends up gently dying on the beach, melting as he watches the teasing Tadjor walking into the ocean in a reverse Ursula Andress. So, what was that about exactly? Well, in many ways, Death in Venice is a film about beauty. Or at least beauty the way Aschenbach understands it.
The creation of beauty and purity is a spiritual act.
No, Gustav. No! Beauty belongs to the senses. Only to the senses. You cannot reach the spirit through the senses. You cannot.
The theme of beauty isn't just reflected in the dialogue, although it's a constant subject of Aschenbach's arguments with his boyfriend. It's depicted in the film itself. However, unlike most filmic depictions of beauty, which seek to find some kind of visual poetry in almost everything, whether mundane or ugly or otherwise, Death in Venice chooses to depict beauty as something black and white, which exists only in opposition to pure wrenching ugliness. Tadjor's angelic appearance is contrasted with grotesque painted mockeries of youthful attractiveness, a ghastly aesthetic Aschenbach eventually succumbs to himself. Plague and pestilence is everywhere, while Tadjor and his beautiful family walk among it unscathed. Hell, even the general opinion of the film is one of extreme opposites. Death in Venice is typically viewed in one of two ways. Either it's an exquisite meditation on the subject of beauty, a slow, deeply moving film about a man trying to hold on to something he can no longer grasp. Or it's an incredible waste of the viewer's time, a pretentious bloated mess as rubbishy as the piles of street refuse it depicts. However, like many things, the truth is somewhere in between. It would be easy to dismiss this film as boring. However, it would also be easy to rush to laud Death in Venice simply to avoid the fear of being seen as an uncultured idiot. How about a little context before we make up our minds? So, beauty. Are we just talking about pure aesthetic beauty? The loveliness of an unspoiled view on a warm day? Or are we talking about some other kind of beauty entirely, the sort that finds its way into the names of films that I review? There's no other way to put this. This is a film about a man's desire for a boy, Thomas Mann's original novella was written based on his own experiences. He travelled with his wife to stay in the very same hotel depicted in the movie, and while there, he became enthralled with the beauty of a boy staying there. With one difference. The object of Mann's affections, the young Baron Vladislav Mols, was 10. Thankfully, nothing happened to the Baron, and he only realised that Mann had been creeping on him when Visconti's film came out. Despite comments by an enemy of Mann, who stated that he tried to make pederasty acceptable to the masses, this is an attraction that is shown to be a conflicted one. Neither Mann nor his fictional counterpart act on their attraction. Aschenbach has the decency to feel bad about his desire, and spends the whole of the film feeling as repulsed as he is tempted. This isn't Humbert Humbert we're talking about. While Aschenbach tries to rationalise his attraction with ideas about beauty in the aesthetic sense, he knows that he cannot act on his desire without harming Tadjor, and his thoughts are deeply inappropriate.
You must never smile like that at anyone.
I love you.
But what of Tadjor? Is he like the Baron, completely blissfully ignorant of Aschenbach's ogling? Or is he repulsed? Well, no. Here's where the story gets truly troubling. Unlike many of the objects of affection in the other stories I've covered, Tadjor isn't developed into a fully fledged character. Instead, he remains exactly that, an object. In some senses, it wouldn't be a problem for Tadjor to remain an attractive, fleeting presence, rather than a fully formed person with thoughts and feelings. For after all, the film follows Aschenbach, who only sees Tadjor from afar, and never tries to pursue or speak to him. The problem is how Tadjor is objectified. Not only is Tadjor aware of Aschenbach's affection, but he seems to enjoy the attention, essentially playing a coquettish, teasing role as he cavorts with other boys and takes note of Aschenbach's glances. He knows his role is to feed Aschenbach's creativity, to be passive, and to allow the older man to revel in his appearance and youth with something approaching vampirism. Tadjor is not allowed to be a character, with his own thoughts, feelings and motivations. He is stripped of his personhood and forced to become a muse. Now, this isn't the first time I've expressed my general displeasure at the sheer concept of a muse. The thought of someone being able to exist only in relation to a great creative genius, as some kind of raw and untapped fodder for their artistic pursuits. It's a one-sided exchange that puts the muse in a vastly disadvantaged position, and usually ends very badly for them. However, in this case, the objectification had even more disturbing implications. When creating Death in Venice, Luchino Visconti combed the wool for the most beautiful boy to play Tadjor, eventually choosing to cast a young man from Sweden, Bjorn Andresen, whose grandmother had seen the casting call and taken him to the audition. At the time, he was 15. Unfortunately for him, he soon found himself in a situation that his grandmother probably hadn't anticipated, being objectified by Visconti, who took him to a gay bar after the film's premiere. According to Andresen, they looked at me uncompromisingly as if I were a nice meaty dish. I knew I couldn't react. It would have been social suicide, but it was the first of many such encounters. The whole experience was deeply unsettling, leaving Andresen feeling sexually harassed and causing him to avoid being cast in any more roles that focused solely on his physical appearance. Then, later in his life, Germaine Greer used his photo for the cover of her book without asking Andresen's permission, thus bringing out the whole experience of being sexually objectified all over again. Yay! Andresen wasn't the only young man to be objectified by a leering Italian director. Bruce Robinson went through more or less the same experience, and refers to his discomfort in With Nail and Eye.
Oh, look at this little bastard. Oh, he lands plum roll for top Italian director. Of course he does. Probably on a tenner a day, and I know what for. £2 tenner tip and a fiver for his arse.
The director in question? Franco Zeffirelli, Visconti's one-time boyfriend. Thankfully, there's no indication that Dirk Bogarde took any part in Andresen's objectification. But was he anything like Aschenbach at all? It's difficult to say without referring to unreliable gossip and rumour. While Dirk Bogarde certainly aged, as most people have the chance to do, he didn't age alone. He instead aged with his partner Anthony Forward beside him, staying together until Forward died. Unlike Aschenbach, or indeed Visconti, there's also no indication that he relentlessly pursued younger men. Gossip-wise, he lamented the fact that he felt unable to have greater sexual experiences or find another partner after Forward's death, for he felt somewhat trapped by the idea of societal norms, combined with the greater expectations placed upon him by fame. There were certainly more than a few things that could contribute to Bogarde's overall sadness. He never felt able to come out. He died alone, and according to his brother, he felt deeply jealous of the normal life and lack of judgment that heterosexual people took for granted. However, he certainly wasn't what one would describe as predatory. For all the rumours swirling around, I couldn't find a single one that suggested that Bogarde was exploitative, or even promiscuous. Indeed, one criticism seemed to be that he was somehow sad for not being as sexually rampant as the other gay men in his social circle. So if that made him an old sad gay guy, then I guess he was? In a way completely opposite to Aschenbach. I can't say I was a fan of this film. Bogarde and Andresen are quite good, inasmuch as they perfectly achieve everything that they were expected to do, and I suppose the film's connection to the works of Mahler might be interesting, but overall, this film just feels empty. It's very slow, with shots taking an incredibly long time to happen, and the story filled with fussy details, such as clearly depicting every little irritable conversation that Aschenbach has. Hell, the first 20 minutes of this movie are more or less just Dirk Bogarde being grumpy on a boat. The film is a little over 2 hours long, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that long of a film. It's at least an hour shorter than Blue is the Warmest Colour, and arguably has a lot more to say. However, watching Death in Venice took me 2 weeks of on and off viewing because I found myself struggling to be interested. There's an interesting meditation on the nature of beauty buried here, but it's hidden behind layers of dragging scenes and the film's many unfortunate implications. To put it bluntly, this film is uncomfortable in a bad way. It's not necessarily a bad thing for a film to focus on an attraction that we consider immoral or exploitative, but Death in Venice doesn't make a statement on the unequal nature of Aschenbach's attraction. Indeed, Visconti almost romanticises it, casting Taggio in such a teasing light that he seems to be asking the audience to absolve Aschenbach of any moral judgment. For after all, how could you not be attracted to Taggio? Don't feel bad about it. He knows you want him, and he likes it. Thanks, Visconti, you old perv. So while it might seem vulgar and anti-intellectual to dismiss this film as boring, I'm going to have to side with the goodies on this one.
What's this one then?
Death in Bogarde.
Was that this much?
No, just the first hour or two.
Was that it?
No, another 90 minutes yet.
Oh. What happens?
Nothing.
Oh. At least it's better than Death in Venice.
So that was Death in Venice, a film that traumatised a teenage boy so much that he never wanted to act in anything ever again. Fuck it, I'm out!
I remember when I first saw him. Something told me that I couldn't ignore him.